New life, a time of celebration. The arrival of a baby is supposed to be a happy time. However, 1 in 10 mums develop a mental illness, either during pregnancy or in the first year of their baby's life. New life. For some, not just a case of the baby blues.
Good morning and thank you. I'm Steph Hood and I'm the Communications and Engagement Lead for the Kenton Medway Sustainability and Transformation Partnership. And I'm really pleased and delighted to welcome and introduce you to Zoe Gibson, who is here with me on the stage. And she's a mother of 2 and also a user of the Mother and Infant Mental Health Service at KMPT. So Zoe, I'd just like to ask you a few questions, if that's okay, and I know that you're happy to share your experiences with people in the room. Could you take us back in time? I think it was about 7 years ago that you were 30 weeks pregnant with your first son, Jack. Tell us about how you felt then and what you later learnt was the start of perinatal ill health. I feel this is a very personal question, but what were your darkest moments?
Okay, so I had already had experience of mental illness as from about the age of 19. I'd suffered bouts of severe depression and had a number of significant breakdowns. However, due to the trauma associated with these experiences and the sense of shame that I carried due to social stigma and really my own prejudices each time as well, I never really accepted my diagnosis of recurrent depression disorder. And so each time when I did get well, I kind of wanted to run away from that world. All the self-help books went underneath my bed and yeah, I didn't want to be part of it anymore. And so certainly when I was feeling well at the time that me and my husband decided to start a family, I certainly didn't want depression or mental health becoming part of my journey to motherhood and having a baby. So I naively came off my medication and was determined to have a drug-free, perfect pregnancy like all those shown in glossy magazines. So when depression did hit at 30 weeks, already having experience, I knew the signs, I knew what was happening, or I thought I knew what was happening, although it turned out to be more horrific than I ever could have imagined. My initial feelings were sheer terror that this was going to happen and it was going to happen whilst I was pregnant. I can remember saying to my husband, you need to take me somewhere, you need to take me to see a specialist in antenatal depression straight away, quickly. If I don't see someone right now, I'm going to die, this baby is going to die because I know what's going to happen and it's going to happen really fast. And as well as that terror, there was complete devastation as well, that this has happened again. After I had overcome depression so many times, I was then struck again at this time that I had dreamt of all my life and that it was now seemingly had got me and was tainting this experience that I really valued. And there were so many dark moments. As I said, I'd already experienced acute depression and felt suicidal before. But this episode was truly horrific, and it progressed with such rapidity and such aggressive force that within a few days of experiencing the first signs and symptoms, I was stuck in this cycle of mental torture. This time I was having suicidal thoughts, but for the first time I was pregnant whilst having suicidal thoughts. So with that came extreme guilt that I was not wanting to be alive. I was wanting to kill myself whilst carrying my baby. And so as a result of this, my mind then started to attack me. And that extreme guilt soon developed into thoughts that I had harmed my baby, thoughts that I was a child abuser, thoughts that I was a baby killer. So it just grew and grew and grew and took over. And even though I'd never wanted to become this child abuser, this baby killer that I was telling about, and didn't know how I'd become it, I was it, and nobody could tell me any different. I couldn't remember ever harming my baby, but my mind was telling me that I could, and because I couldn't remember not doing it, there was no clear evidence that I wasn't. So despite all the professionals telling me that I wasn't this horrible person, and my family, and me trying to write it down and desperately believe it, my mind just wouldn't let me. And so my darkest moment is probably when I was completely overcome by these feelings that I was this monster, and then the anger and disgust and hatred for this person who was me that had then harmed my baby. I beat myself. I beat my face, my head, my arms, never my stomach. I beat myself. And that was the darkest moment. And when considering this question, I mean, this is the first time I've ever publicly talked about this moment. And I thought, and this was the moment that instantly sprang to my mind, but I thought, should I say that? You know, it's really shocking, it's really ugly, it might make someone feel uncomfortable. But that was the ugly nature of this illness. Someone who dreamed of being a mum, who's never had any history of violence towards myself, towards others, who at the beginning of pregnancy had a really bad bout of flu, didn't even want a paracetamol entering my body for fear of harming my body. I became this uncontrollable person with bruises and bloody face, feeling that I'd harm my baby. I can remember screaming at my husband, you need to call the police, they need to take this baby out of me and put me in prison. No matter, so it kind of ran its course to the worst nightmare imaginable. No matter what anyone told me, I couldn't really believe any different. And so these thoughts continued until the end of my pregnancy. And I gave birth at 41.5 weeks, believing that I was a child abuser and didn't deserve this baby. So.
Zoe, that's such an honest reflection, and thank you so much for sharing it with all of us in this room. And I don't think there'll be anyone in the room that isn't touched by hearing that and feels great empathy for Zoe. Having heard that, can you pinpoint the moment where you felt there was light at the end of the tunnel and you knew that you could overcome what you'd experienced?
It was quite a long, drawn-out, difficult journey of recovery. So there wasn't really a light at the end of the tunnel moment as such. However, even initially when I was really, really unwell, everybody commented that I still had the ability to be quite articulate about what was going on and how I was feeling. And also I seemed to have quite an accurate radar when I met so many health professionals as to who were the ones that would actually be able to help me. And thank goodness quite quickly the MIMS team became involved in my care because, you know, they didn't...
And how did you find that help? What was the sort of gateway for you to getting hold of the help that you needed?
What happened was my husband... not knowing where to take me, what to do. He took me to A&E when I was extremely unwell. They referred me to the crisis team, and the crisis team very quickly referred me to the MIMS team. Yeah.
And what happened then? I understand you went on to a mother and baby unit. Yes. Can you tell us a bit about that?
Obviously, a mother and baby unit wasn't part of the start of motherhood or parenthood that me and my husband had envisaged, but it was the only place, I strongly believe, the only place where I could have recovered and received the treatment that I needed at the time. So thank goodness there was a bed available for me at the Bethlehem Hospital, and I was received excellent care, support, treatment, and also my baby was cared for, and my husband was involved and updated and reassured along the way as well.
It must have been a very trying time for obviously for you, but for the whole family and everyone that cared for you.
Yeah.
And thank goodness that service was there. And I understand that you're now involved in developing a similar mother and baby unit here in Kenton Medway. What are your thoughts on that, and how that could impact and will impact on future mothers and families going through what you've experienced?
I'm really excited that another mother and baby unit is opening, because that means that there are more beds available, and then I've already talked about the benefits of such care, and so more women and their families will benefit. The fact that it's opening in Dartford means that women who live in I live in Canterbury, so I did have to I went to the Bethlehem Hospital, so I was then in Bromley, which was quite a distance away. So hopefully people will be able to be closer to home, and that will be beneficial for partners and families. And also all the marketing of the MBU will raise the profile of all the perinatal mental health services of the area, and hopefully that will enable more mothers to get access, to be aware of the services and get access to them. And so it's really positive and exciting.
I'm so glad that you're able to be involved in that. Zoe, thank you. I feel that I could sit and talk to you all day long about this, but I think we might be told off for ruining the schedule.
Okay.
So we'll pause for now. I think there will be an opportunity for questions later, and on with the rest of the agenda. Thank you so much for sharing your story.
Hello, I'll introduce myself. I'm Karen Dory-Rees. I'm Assistant Director for Specialist Services within KMPT. And at the moment, I'm leading on the development of the Mother and Baby Unit, and Zoe has been a fabulous service user involved in that. So I'm just going to give you an update as to what's happening in perinatal mental health at the moment, because it seems to be the only area that has quite a lot of investment at the moment. As people are probably aware, the mental health five-year forward view made perinatal mental health a priority, with a commitment that by 2021, an additional 30,000 women in all areas of the country should receive access to specialist care closer to home when they need it, with access to psychological therapies and the right range of specialist community or inpatient care. Following a successful community service development bid in April last year, we have in KMPT expanded our mother and infant mental health service, which Zoe has referred to, which we call MIMS. We previously had a service that was 5 nurse specialists and 3 part-time perinatal consultant psychiatrists. And now we have a multidisciplinary team of 26 clinicians, including consultant psychiatrists, more time, speciality doctors, nurses, psychologists, OTs, and nursery nurses who we've just recruited. The team no longer receives their referrals from CMHTs, which caused a very flawed pathway, but now receives direct referrals, including self-referrals. This has enabled us to improve access to women local to where they live, which is reflected in an increase in our referrals from 103 in Q1 to 356 in Q3. So that's quite a massive increase, and we are still in the process of developing the service. The aim is to increase access to treatment to 1,058 women a year, and that's 5% of the birth population. Dr. Nair, one of our consultant psychiatrists, has also been leading on the development of integrated pathways across Kent and Medway, and working very closely with all our perinatal pathways to make sure that the mother's journey throughout their perinatal time is as smooth as possible. In addition to the increase in community perinatal provision, we were also successful in our bid submitted last year to develop an 8-bedded mother and baby unit to serve the population of Kent, Surrey and Sussex. This expansion in MBU capacity is part of NHS England's programme to improve access and quality of perinatal mental health services across the country, and there are 4 MBUs opening. So we were so pleased that we actually were picked to open one that covers our area. The requirement was for the MBU to be co-located with an acute mental health site, and also to have close proximity to maternity services, including paediatric A&E. So some people might think that, why Dartford? It's right in the north of Kent, Surrey and Sussex, but in fact the parameters of the bid were quite tight. And we do like to say, you know, it is accessible as long as the M25 is running well. Anyway, we don't talk about that. We have really good links with Darrant Valley Hospital, so we've got a good starting point. The site we've picked is Rosewood, which is a standalone purpose-built unit on the Greenacre site in Dartford. It was built in 2004, and we have had an additional 1.5 million capital and have been working with the design team to refurbish the unit so it's fit for purpose and it meets the Royal College standards for mother and baby units. I would like to say that once the excitement of winning the bid was over, we all had a moment of panic because none of us knew how to run a mother and baby unit. And it's one of those things that you just take for granted, but when you think about having babies on a ward, it does give you a little bit of panic. But we've had absolutely expert involvement from Zoe, who's talked today, and also T, another service user mum who's not here today. They've answered questions that we don't know the answers to, and they've worked alongside the project from the beginning. They've informed the MBU design, they've participated actively in all the recruitment. In fact, we couldn't make our decision about 2 ward managers. We had 2 excellent ward managers and couldn't make a decision, and Zoe and T are going to do another interview, and they're going to make the choice for us. Health Education England have also committed funding for Zoe and T to work on a recovery booklet that will provide education and information to mums who are admitted to the unit to support their discharge. The MBU is scheduled to open in the summertime, in late summer, and the building work is due to commence on the 9th of April. I'll just give you an understanding of what the staffing will be, because it is quite amazing, the staffing. We have psychiatrists, nurses, occupational therapists, pharmacists, psychologists, nursery nurses, peer support workers, social worker, midwife, health visitors, healthcare assistants, housekeeping and admin. We're working in partnership with maternity services and health visitors, looking at training, but also they will be providing the staff for us in terms of the service level agreement for the midwife and health visitor on the ward. Talking about all those staff would lead me on to recruitment, because as you know, recruitment in mental health is not that simple. But we had an incredibly successful open day in January where we had over 100 people turn up, all women. And if anybody knows any men who wants to work in a mother and baby unit, will you tell them it's all right? We don't want all women just working there, but at the moment we've only had all women that's expressed an interest. We've recruited to many key posts, so the initial risk that we had, which was quite high, that we wouldn't recruit the staff, has come down. So we've recruited the consultant psychiatrist, ward manager, one of the deputy ward managers, 8 of the 9 nurses, which is absolutely amazing given the current shortage we have for nurses at the moment, the physical health nurse, psychologist, and 4 of the 7 nursery nurses. We're still interviewing at the moment, but we've had amazing response, and some we've gone out to advert again. So our aim is to start people in post a month before the unit opens, so that we can provide team training, finalise all our systems and processes, and give staff an opportunity to gain experience of working with our MINS team and to go and visit Surrey and Sussex and work with their community perinatal teams. The service also includes an outreach service, a perinatal outreach service, where there'll be perinatal outreach workers in Surrey, Sussex and Kent. And they will monitor admission and discharge and make sure that that is as fluid as possible, and so that somebody discharged from the unit will get the right support. So the planned opening for the unit is the 23rd of July, and at the moment we're on target, aren't we, John? Yes. So that's it.
Thank you all for that. I'm sure you'll agree that was a really powerful start to the day. Special thanks to Zoe, obviously, for sharing her experience, and great to hear the NHS response to it and some real action that's underway as we speak. Now, can I just check, have we got time for some questions, and do we have any on the Slido? We do? Okay, so I think this is supposed to work by the question appearing on the screen, and I've been asked to read it for those with visual impairments. So the first question is, what are the plans for peer support work support in the MIMS service? Would seem particularly in this field that this is essential and highly beneficial. So peer support workers in the MIMS service. Who'd like to take that?
Can you hear me? Yeah, we didn't have peer support workers in the first wave of the bid that we put in to develop the MIMS service, but we've just put in a bid for the second wave funding and have included peer support workers in that. Peer support workers and a social worker and other staff. We are hopeful that we'll get the peer support workers and see that it's a very valuable resource. If we don't get the peer support workers, we will look at how we reprofile the team because we're very committed to having them.
Thank you very much, Karen. Any more questions? One more? Okay, here it comes. Zoe, thank you so much for sharing your experience. What are you most looking forward to about the new mother and baby unit?
Well, obviously, I'm looking at having been involved in shaping it from the beginning. Really looking forward to it being up and running, and in fact, as well as all the staffing that put in place, I feel that the peer support worker is a really exciting new role. I'm really pleased that that's been identified and recognised. When I was so ill, I can remember just desperately wanting to see physical evidence of someone who'd been through what I was going through, and now able to walk and talk and be a mum and feel like a mum. Unfortunately, I didn't have the opportunity of having access to a peer support worker, so I'm really pleased that the mums who will be at the new unit will have this opportunity.
Fantastic, thank you. Can I ask you all to show your appreciation, please, for our first speakers?